Go come to realize all the power.
Unfortunately, my favourite spot was closed, so I tried out a new place for breakfast, and it turned out to be pretty good, and the cappuccino was really pretty. I then made my way past the Spanish Steps, one of my favourite tourist watching spots. I stopped in at Sephora because they were having a really good sale and brought my first perfume ever, which I'm pretty excited about, before heading back to Eddie Restaurant, where I had some delicious pasta for lunch. I then made my way through the city towards Trastevere, as I hadn't been there before and had heard the area was pretty cool and a little on the trendy side.
A month or a year from now, I'll find my way somehow back to myself again.
There was lots of street art, old narrow streets, and interesting buildings. It was definitely an interesting place to walk around, and at the edge of the suburb there is a gigantic hill which for some reason I decided to walk up because I thought there might be a view. I saw a couple taking some photos, and that just made me a little bit happy because I always love running into random little photo shoots or things happening around the cities that aren't directly going for Instagram. I did enjoy the hike, and the views at the end were absolutely incredible. It wasn't even that late in the day, but the sky had this incredible glow to it, and there were seagulls everywhere, which usually I would hate, but for some reason it made it better, and I'm not quite sure how or why. It was nice to get away from the touristy areas and a little bit off the beaten track. On my way back, I tried to find a new pair of Doc Martens because mine are absolutely trashed after all the walking I've been doing through all of Europe. And then I stopped in at my favourite gelato place to get some gelato before deciding to get some dinner in Trastevere. I'd heard that most of the restaurants were pretty good. Honestly, I just picked one that I thought looked quite pretty. It's not the best place I've ever eaten in Rome, but the gnocchi I had was a very generous portion and I really enjoyed it. As I was walking back to my hostel, it was dark, and suddenly, just as I walked across the bridge, there were birds everywhere. I later had to look up what this was called, and technically when birds clump together like this, it's called a murmation, so I like to say that there were murmations of birds everywhere. It went on for honestly about 20 minutes, and I just sat and watched the birds. It was a magical experience, and I'm just going to stop talking now to let you appreciate how spectacular this event was. Shop and also found a free legged cat that I cried about a lot later on and really hope wasn't a stray. The next morning I headed back to my favourite big old park and decided to spend a little bit of time just walking around, sitting and admiring the landscape. There were a few people around, but the park's also gigantic, so it was pretty quiet. I then saw a lady walking her cat, which really threw me off because I've never seen that before, and honestly I've never thought of it. From Villa Borghese, I made my way down to go get some lunch, and I was really craving pizza because I hadn't had any for a while, and I ended up at this place with really good reviews, and let me tell you, this is the biggest pizza I've ever eaten, and I did eat the whole thing. From there, I walked just up the road to one of the local flea markets, and I did have to pay $1.60 just to go in, which I thought was a little bit annoying, but it was pretty cool to see what everyone was selling there. The prices did vary a lot, and some of them were more reasonable than others, but it was definitely interesting to check out. I did manage to talk this lady down on this cardigan embroidered style thing that I really liked. I was a bit tired and I stopped in to get a coffee, orange juice and do some journaling at Trecaffe before heading back to my hostel. The next morning I made it back to Gino Bar and had a delicious brioche and cappuccino as per usual, before it was time to head to the Colosseum. I'd booked it a few days earlier and I think I got there before too many of the big crowds as it was quite early in the morning. And honestly, the Colosseum was spectacular. The number of people who are coming through does dampen the atmosphere a little bit, I'm not going to lie, but if you can concentrate on what's in front of you and not worry about the people, you'll probably be fine. I spent most of my time there imagining an actual gladiator fight going on in the ring, which I thought was quite fun. And I also didn't realise how, and honestly I just think it's an absolute marvel of engineering and human achievement. Although obviously what went on there was not the greatest when we look back at it, the building itself is absolutely phenomenal. After I'd spent some time at the Colosseum, I made my way back over to Trastevere and had some lunch at Tonorello, a place I'd been recommended by someone in my hostel. The pasta was really good and I had my first panna cotta ever and it was absolutely delicious. I was still hungry, so then I got some ice cream and I desperately tried to find somewhere to sit while it melted. I made my way through a new section of the city I hadn't been to before, walked up a load of steps and then went to Piazza Venezia, aka the typewriter as it's known by the locals, which I think is a pretty cool name if I'm being honest. It was a nice place to just observe and watch the world go by. Got back to my hostel and made a smoothie before finishing for the day. And as you may have come across before, here are some of my 35mm film photos. Hope you enjoy and I'll see you in the next episode.
Ba 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 ba